bake to you bake, I'll bake, the baking show for the baking chef. I'm baking.
And I'm baking.
It's you cook, I'll bake.
A perfect show for the imperfect chef.
I'm Danielle and that's Andrea.
And today we're baking.
Both baking.
Both baking. Literally baking. Right now.
Quite literally. My AC went out today, so if we're got a little extra glisten, a little extra
Just let it happen, people. Just let it happen.
Now you know.
There you go.
And you may not know it, but we're actually both currently on a diet.
Yeah, the quarantine got us. And what says diet better than bread? Lots
episode
and lots of bread.
dedicated to bread.
All the bread.
That's what we're doing today,
Everything.
people.
Mm-hmm.
All the bread.
Good. You're going to love it.
Go.
So today I'm going to be making some amazing focaccia bread. Really easy focaccia bread. So amazing.
And I'm doing a gluten-free, no-knead bread. Neither of us need bread right now. Let's just be honest with that. I think both of our recipes are no-knead breads, but gluten-free, lots, very herby. I think both of them are very herby.
But you know what? Hang on. There's something missing though. The sweets.
We need something sweet. I've got us covered.
Yes.
Welcome our guest chef of the day, my mom, Jennifer.
Yay! Come on in. Come on in. This is
just
good.
so happens I am not on a diet.
One third of
I
us.
get to eat all of your bread that you make
This
today.
is
You will
good.
be the taster
This is
for
gonna be great.
all of the bread.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom, this is Jennifer. She is in town just in time for the bread episode. Was telling me the other day about a new banana bread recipe that she was raving about that I haven't tried yet. So gluten-free banana bread, that's right up my alley.
Right up mine
Yummy
as well.
in your tummy.
Love
I can't
it.
wait.
This is good. So we're getting ready to get started. Stay tuned. Jen, I hope you understand how much I love banana bread. It is one of my all-time favorite things for snacks, desserts, you name it. I am so excited.
It's very versatile.
And I understand you've made some changes to the banana bread recipe that your grandmother used to make.
Yes, as you know, we are a gluten and lactose-free family. So I had grown up with banana bread. My grandmother loved to make it, and I just enjoyed her recipe so much. She was a perfect zero-waste mom and grandma.
And I think that's amazing. Zero waste, indicative of the time, obviously, but definitely needs to be something that we adhere to as well nowadays.
Yeah, practice
as well.
more frequently.
Yeah, this woman would not waste anything. If the bananas were getting brown, quickly you would see the flour, the sugar hit the counter, and before long the banana bread would be warm and piping hot. So today I'm going to actually make that same version of a one bowl banana bread recipe that I grew up with a couple of alterations. Thank you ladies helping me out with the banana peel.
We're here for you.
With a couple of alterations so that we can have it as a gluten and lactose free option. And it tastes even better. And the cool thing about making it gluten free is that you add a couple of ingredients like the oatmeal that make it even more nutritious while even more yummy at the same time. So the first step here is just to mash the bananas, and again they're slightly ripened so they're easy to smush all together, and often I like to get the grandkids in the kitchen to help me with the smushing because they really enjoy that part.
Well, that reminds me, Stella wanted to be here, so I'm going to grab her real quick.
And here she is.
Here she is. Hey, sweetie. Would you like to help Nana smush the bananas?
Yeah. I'm actually going to step out. You
Yeah,
guys
you
have fun.
like smushing those bananas. Let me look at that little one there. That's our vanilla and maple syrup. And make sure you get it all out of there. Get that goodness out. Keep turning up on its side till it all
That's all
drains
good.
out. That's perfect. And grab that white one there. That's our coconut oil that's been melted, and ooh, it looks good. It's got little chunks of coconut. Again, turn it up on its side. You want to crack the egg?
Well, not on
Nope,
there.
not on there.
Want to do it? Tap
Crack
it on the.
On the wood. You've been practicing.
There you
Yay!
go.
That was
Put
a
the shell in
perfect egg
there.
crack.
Good
All right, now let's
job.
stir that up a little bit. There you go.
And then here, what do we have in here, Mom?
We have regular sugar, cane sugar, brown sugar, baking powder, sea salt, nutmeg, and cinnamon. Gonna get a little harder now when the dry goods go in. That's why Mommy was telling you to hold it from the top. There you go.
You gotta
Get a
really
big
use
muscle
those
into
muscles.
it. Okay,
happy
scrape the
that-
side over there.
I'm happy I get to spend this time with Nana.
Oh, I love you. Thank you for that. We've always baked together since you were a little toddler girl.
Yep.
All right, I think you're ready. You're ready for the flour?
Oh, there's some banana.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it got stuck in there. We'll get that out a little bit later. But you see, we're going to put the flour in now. What's important about when you put the
mixing
flour in,
it.
you got to keep mixing.
You keep mixing.
Because when we're putting that flour in, it's going to want to get a little chunky.
Gotcha.
And we're going to need to really stir it with our big, big muscles. There you go.
There you go.
Oh,
Use
so
them
much
muscles.
on
Yeah,
the side.
scrape it down on the sides. Don't let it come out of the bowl. Be nice.
Perfect. So I use that gluten-free flour. You can use pretty much any variety. I use the Pillsbury gluten-free flour usually. But I also added the almond flour because it adds a little nutty texture and a hint of that flavor of the nuttiness. It's just really delicious. So now we're ready to add the milk. And you can use the lactose-free milk here, Stella. Well, you can use any milk option that's right for your family. We happen to choose the lactose-free milk with this recipe. Now, if you can whisk that carefully, because it will.
Actually, we're
I'm
gonna
going to
use
use the wooden spoon. Yeah, thank you for that. Because that way it doesn't get all chunky in there. I pull the good banana pieces
Whisks are
out.
great. I mean, when you're working with something that's super dense, though, that gets really thick, it can get hard to fully combine everything because things will get trapped inside that whisk. So we like to use wooden spoons, sometimes just a fork, something that's going to be easy to make sure that all of the ingredients stay out and get mixed and don't get trapped inside.
We have one more exciting ingredient that we have to add to the entire recipe, and that is our oatmeal. Oatmeal, that's right. This is a new addition to my grandmother's one bowl recipe because it adds a bit of that chunkiness and that chewiness from the oatmeal. There you go. Would you like to stir that? It also makes it even more nutritious, so you can feel better about eating it as a breakfast option or giving it to the kids as a mid-afternoon snack. You've done such a good job mixing this, Stella. So now we're ready to take this delicious mixture and put it into our cake pans. So you want to move those up? Thank you. We've greased these cake pans with some coconut oil and we have the parchment paper to avoid the sticking. And as I said earlier, our family has different choices and we love the variety of the banana bread. So we're going to put chocolate chips into part of the recipe. And the other part, we're not going to have the chocolate chips, making it more of a dessert and a snack or a breakfast meal option. All right, so Nana's going to scrape half of this into the pan here and work to not make a big old mess.
Yeah.
And those chocolate chips are dark chocolate, and they are also gluten and dairy-free, vegan. It's a great brand called Enjoy Life. They are served at a lot of the local grocery stores. Check it out. They're delicious.
And so now we've added the chocolate chips. And did you have something you wanted to say about the chocolate chips, Stella?
Yeah, the reason why you don't put them in and then dump it into half is because you might get some of the chocolate chips in and you don't want your hand germs in the thing.
Yeah, you want to divvy up your batter first,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because it'd be kind of hard to make sure that you get all the chocolate chips out if you've mixed it into all of it.
Yeah.
And now we're going to put these in the oven at 350 degrees for an hour and 15 minutes. After it comes out of the oven, we're going to let it rest for an hour just so that it doesn't fall apart. It's going to be especially scrumptious.
Today, I am making focaccia. Now, focaccia is one of my favorite breads to make. It's a very nice flat bread that's got little pockets of oil and salt and rosemary and happiness in it, and insanely easy to make. So this is what we're gonna start with today. I have 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. This is dry active yeast, and keep in mind that yeast is alive. Typically when it's in this state, it's going to be asleep. We need to wake it up, and the way that we wake it up is with 2 ingredients. We have the yeast, we have 2 teaspoons of honey. I never measure, I know what it looks like. 2 teaspoons of honey, 1, 2 teaspoons of honey, and 2 3/4 cups of lukewarm water. Keep in mind it needs to be lukewarm water. If it's not, if it's too hot, it will burn the yeast and it will make it die very, very quickly. If it's too cold, the yeast won't grow. So that makes no sense. So we're gonna let this sit out for about 5 minutes until the yeast has become foamy on the top. I'll show you what that looks like, but that's what we're looking for. And then to that, we're gonna add 5 cups of flour and 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. That's the entire recipe. That's it. It's so insanely simple. The yeast mixture, my wet ingredients are ready to go. Now all I'm gonna do is add in 5 cups of flour. Before I do, I wanna add 1 tablespoon of salt to this flour. We'll mix that together very, very quickly. 5 cups of flour. Now this is regular flour. This is all-purpose flour. Some people think when it comes to making Italian breads or French breads that you need to use like expensive flour. No, I have the store brand here. It is unbleached flour. I don't like the bleached flour at all, but unbleached flour, and into my wet ingredients it goes. For those of you who are gluten-free, please feel free to use gluten-free flour. It works just as well. I'm just making this the way I know it with all-purpose flour. You do not use self-rising flour at all. Everything's mixed together, we're ready to go. Now I want you to keep in mind that this is a wet dough. It is not something that is a dry knead type situation. This is a very wet dough. Now we're gonna take this dough and transfer it to a glass bowl, just totally glass bowl, but I need to line the bowl with olive oil. The purpose of doing this is to keep it from sticking to the bowl for sure, but also it adds a lot of flavor, so it's gonna work out really, really well. We're gonna take this, dump it straight into the bowl. There we go. I'm gonna add just a little bit more olive oil onto the sides here. In total, you'll have about 4 tablespoons of olive oil that's in this bowl. I know that sounds like a lot, but it really does help in the whole process of it growing. Again, this is a yeast-filled dough, so the whole purpose is for it to rise. I'm gonna cover this with plastic wrap and we're gonna set it off to the side in a warm place. Luckily, the AC is out, so the whole house is warm. But we're gonna set it off to the side in a warm place. Normally, I like to take this and put this in my laundry room as I'm doing laundry, and I put it on top of the dryer. It's a perfect place to keep it, and it helps it to stay warm. Luckily for you, I've already made a batch, and this is what it looks like. You're looking for your dough to rise at least doubling in size, and this has doubled, tripled. It's fantastic. I'm so excited. So I've got my dough here, and I've got a pan. Now I'm using a very seasoned pan. This is one of my older ones. I love it. Just gives it a really great flavor. I'm gonna line my pan with olive oil. Rub it in. If anything in this recipe, your hands are gonna be very moisturized, and that's always a plus. So I'm gonna line my pan with olive oil. And it looks like a lot because it is, and that's okay. That's how focaccia works. I wanna make sure to get the sides, make sure to get the top, and then I'm gonna use this beautiful olive oiled hands of mine, and I'm gonna pull my dough out of the bowl. I'm actually starting to deflate the dough a little bit, and that's a good thing. And I'm just gonna drop it in. Look at how beautiful that is. You can see some of the bubbles are coming out. And my goal here is to get my dough to come into basically the shape of my pan. And it's gonna fight me. That's okay. That's all those glutens, the gluten strands. Now it's on to the second stage of the focaccia. I'm gonna let this sit for 30 minutes, again, in a warm spot, and allow it to kind of come into the shape of my pan. Once I'm done, I'm gonna come back with a really special secret ingredient.
While Andrea's dough is resting, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our gluten-free, no-knead bread. So here I have with me some flour, some seasoning, and some lukewarm room temperature water. Really super easy, minimal ingredients required. I'm going to pour in my salt, pepper, garlic, and Italian seasoning and active yeast into my flour. And I'm going to just use a wooden spoon to mix it all together, whisk it a little bit. And then we are going to slowly combine in our 1.5 cups of water. This is a very similar process to Andrea's in terms of you've got the flour and you've got the seasoning. The gluten-free flour is not going to rise nearly as much. It will rise a little bit, but it will not double in size. So you won't get quite the experience that you get with the glutens. But then personally, I won't get quite the experience afterwards that I would get with the glutens. So yay for that. Pour in the rest of the water. This is going to be a very sticky dough as well once we are done. And the process is different because we're not mixing the water and the yeast first. I do that when I'm making my gluten-free pizza dough and get that nice foamy look to it before mixing it with the rest of the ingredients. But this particular recipe does not call for you to do that. You have the active yeast along with all of your other ingredients. Mix that in with the flour and then combine it with the water. Very simple. I am quickly checking this dough to make sure that I haven't missed any of the dry ingredients on the bottom. I have to move very quick because it is sticky. But it looks good. I am now going to cover it with some saran wrap pretty tightly. If you have a bowl that has a lid, that would work as well. Right now I'm not using a bowl that has a lid. So I'm going to cover it really tightly with some saran wrap, and then we're going to let it sit at room temperature for 24 hours. All right, now that we have this tightly covered with some saran wrap, lucky for you, we don't have to wait 24 hours while that one rests. I have gone ahead and made another batch earlier, and set it aside. It rested for 24 hours. You then take it out of the bowl, uncover it, and put it in the pan that you're going to bake it in. I am using a stoneware loaf pan from Pampered Chef today, and sat it in here. It was greased with some canola oil. Made sure that it was flattened and molded to the pan. Then it rests for 2 hours at room temperature, covered by a towel. 2 hours, room temperature, towel over it, and this is what the finished product should look like. We are now going to put this into the oven at 425 degrees for about an hour, but just before we hit that hour mark, I'm going to take it out at about 45 minutes, and I'm going to put some butter on it. I'm going to put some melted butter on the top and pop it back in the oven for the final 15.
All right, we're ready to go. You ready, Danielle? You want to help me out? Look at this. Oh, it's so pretty. Look at that dough. Isn't it beautiful?
It
glistening.
is. I don't even eat gluten, and I think it's pretty.
There you go. Before we get started, I want to show you something really quick. This has just been resting for just a few minutes. I mean, I want to say maybe about 20 minutes, and look how much it's already grown. So it will grow. It will grow. And let it grow. It's going to be so good. So here we go.
Let it grow.
Let it grow. That's all I got. So this is what focaccia bread should look like. It's very nice. It's glistening. When you touch it, it should kind of bounce back a little bit, go to town. What I'm looking for right now is I want to go ahead and get this out to the shape of the pan. And again, I'm using a pan that I've had this pan for years and I love it. But what our goal is now is to put little dimples. That's all we want to do. We want dimples. And you want to get in there to the point where you actually touch the bottom, but without breaking through the bottom. Does that make sense? Yeah. Dimples. I'm not going to
don't break through to the other side.
Don't break through to the other side. And I'm not going to, I thought about making a joke about what the dimples look like, but you can make your decisions on that one. But we are on a diet.
Flashbacks earlier when we said we're on a diet.
There you go. So
they will never look at this bread the same again.
They will never look at this. Focaccia is totally different. All right, so we've got tons of dimples in there. It's absolutely beautiful. Again, it's glistening. Now what we're going to do, and this is something that I have not done yet before, I'm going to kind of follow the direction of one of my favorite chefs. Her name is Samin Nosrat. She is the author of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. Check it out on Netflix or get the book. So good. But she does a saltwater brine on hers. So we have half a cup of water here with some sea salt. And I want to say I used about 2 tablespoons of sea salt. And all I'm going to do, never done this before, you can check the pro tips on the website to decide whether or not we liked it. But I'm going to pour my saltwater brine just on top of my
Dimpled
focaccia bread.
Dough.
It is, it's so amazing. And we're gonna let it sit for a minute, and then this is going into the oven at 425 degrees for about 30 minutes. What's really good is all that salt water is going to get into the top of the bread. It's gonna make it really nice and crusty, and it's going to rise as it's going, because again, it's still got the yeast in there. And it's going to make a beautiful, beautiful, crusty, salty layer on top, which is what you're looking for when it comes to focaccia. Now, before I do anything else, we are going to add some rosemary leaves, just some little bit of rosemary to the top.
Your cute little plant.
My cute little plant that I brought in. And just drop them on there. Nothing says focaccia like rosemary. Oh, it's so beautiful and herby. So good. So we've got some black pepper that we've sprinkled on top, and I've added just a little bit of olive oil on the top as well. That's gonna be great for those little dimples that we put in here. And now it's going in the oven. Let's go.
And there you have it. We have 3 delicious types of bread. We have our gluten-free, no-knead bread made with Italian herbs. We have a dessert bread, banana bread with and without dark chocolate chips, and a beautiful focaccia bread.
Beautiful Italian focaccia bread that is made with salt, pepper, and rosemary on top. All of that olive oil is seeped in, made a really nice crunch. It's fantastic.
Interesting little fact, we have mentioned how gluten-free bread is more dense. It can also dry out a little bit quicker than regular bread. So what we do is we cut it down the middle, and you can do the same thing with gluten-free cake. Cut it down the middle so that when you take that slice out, you can scooch it back together. The crispiness on the outside will help hold in a lot of that moisture.
That's right.
Let's break some bread.
Let's break some bread together, guys. You ready to taste?
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
excited.
All right, there's a piece for
Thank
y'all.
you.
I'll grab a piece from you. So
Thank
this
you.
is it's a little warm still.
That's
See the steam rising.
Wonderful aroma.
Oh, I love the herbs. That's really nice. I love that.
It's a little spongy. Got a nice chew to it.
I'm excited to try the chocolate banana cake.
I'm sure you are.
We unfortunately cannot try the gluten bread, but
I'm okay with taking this one for the team.
go for it.
We will
I'm
watch
just
you
saying.
and enjoy through
I'm
you.
gonna look.
So
so
amazing.
I love
We
it.
are
Super
envious.
envious. Super salty on top, which is exactly what focaccia should be. Really nice bit of oil that you get at the top from the olive oil. Absolutely delicious.
And this is just super flaky banana bread right here. I mean, it looks amazing. I personally have never had banana bread with chocolate in it, so
What?
Very moist.
all the new things here on You Cook, I'll Bake.
Mom, you know when I usually have like a chocolate peanut butter and
Smoothie.
it tastes exactly.
Just without peanut butter, but with banana.
Yeah, no.
Speaking of, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We're on all the social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at You Cook, I'll Bake.
That's right.
Get the recipes for today's episode and more at youcookalbake.com.
Check out those pro tips too.
Yeah. Join us next week. We can't wait to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Ciao.
And thank you to
Oh yes, thank you, Nana.
our special guest, Jennifer, Mom, Nana, known by all three, and
for
Stella
having
for joining us again.
That's right.
My
We
favorite.
can't wait to see you next time. Take
Have a
care.
good one.
Ciao.
Peace. Welcome back to You Bake, I'll Bake. The first. Welcome back to You Bake, I'll Bake. The baking show. You're supposed to say that, okay? Baking show for the baking chef. Then you're gonna say, "I'm baking."
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Ready?
Ooh, we
Again.
It's professionals.
Welcome back to You Bake, I'll Bake. The perfect bake. This is hard. This is hard to say.
I'm so excited about this jumpsuit. So cute.
Jumpsuit, cover me. 21 Pilots. Sorry.
Leave it.
That was good.
That's all I'm baking.
Yeah.